how far along is the Polaris?
So the Polaris, there's good news and bad news there. Unfortunately, we haven't actually put it further into production ever since the concept sale. However, I can tell you that it is currently the absolute next priority within the ship pipeline right after we finish up the 600i, and that is basically scheduled to start probably around April, May is when we're currently estimating that to begin.
Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show, and today we are talking about, well, kind of a boring subject. No one's probably really going to be interested in it. It's that, you know, that ship thing, the Corvette that nobody cares about. Yeah, what is it called again? The Polarity thing? Wait, Polaris? Is that how you pronounce that? Yeah, it's that Corvette that was sold at CitizenCon 2016, and everybody kind of went mental over because it looked so damn good. It really did. It was like this high-speed attack ship, smallest of the capitals. It was pretty damn good looking. I mean, there were some variants and there were some interesting ways that they could have gone in the engine layout, but overall, it had a pretty darn good layout. And a lot of people were just like, holy crap, this is my foot in the capital market. It got a lot of excitement. A lot of people were really pumped about this ship. And of course, after it was sold, it kind of disappeared into the mists of the production pipeline, and we really haven't heard anything substantial about it since. Now, of course, that has changed. Possibly, perhaps, maybe, beginning production April, May-ish now. That's what we're hearing. So, of course, that doesn't mean, you know, oh, well, by June or July, we're going to be flying the Polaris. No. I mean, maybe June of July of 2019, we could be flying the Polaris. But obviously, there's still a ways to go with this ship before it's done and ready to rock and roll in the Star Citizen universe. But it does raise some interesting possibilities. Now, whereas the Hammerhead, which we're probably going to be seeing sometime around September, supposedly, is giving players something of a dominant amount of firepower over smaller vessels, the Polaris is a different kind of animal. Though the Polaris operates a similar amount of not all too different turrets as the Hammerhead does, the Polaris's primary armament is the Class 10 anti-capital torpedo. I mean, it's the biggest torpedo that you have in the game, and this ship has basically 4 torpedo tubes, and what is it, 28 torpedoes in total, 24 in the racks and 4 in the tubes. And so it kind of gives you that reach to kind of go after perhaps bigger prey. Add to that what CIG has said about the Polaris being a very high-speed ship, quote-unquote, blazingly fast. So, I mean, if you have a ship like the Caterpillar, which does 892 meters a second at full afterburner, and that's kind of a cargo ship, how fast will the Polaris go? Possibly much faster. That's always been one of the central questions around the Polaris, one of the things that people have worried about, and bringing the ship into production or bringing it into the game will give players an idea of what blazingly fast actually means. Is it going to be faster? Is it going to be slower than a Caterpillar? Does blazingly fast only mean it compared to, say, an Idris or a Javelin? Or will it be up there with, some of your faster ships like the Caterpillar, like the Freelancer? Where exactly is it going to land? Possibly a year or more from now, probably a little bit more, we might actually get the answer to that question. Speed is often one of the least thought of combat qualities of a ship. It's like, oh, how strong are its shields? How many guns does it have? But speed is a very important factor. Tactically, it can give you the ability, when you're faster than your opponents, you have the ability to determine where, when, and if a conflict is going to occur. And that's an important advantage to have, to set the pace of the battle, to pick the place of a battle as well. Those are very important qualities for a ship to have. Speed gives you options. And so finally getting an answer to that question is very big for this ship. The torpedoes on the Polaris are also a big question mark. How good are they? How fast do they travel? How much do they cost? That's a big one. The cost of the torpedoes, because remember, that's the ship's primary weapon system, and its primary weapon system uses an ammunition that you may not be able to manufacture yourself. You may have to go to NPCs to purchase that ammunition, and that could have an effect on your bottom line, because remember, at the end of the day in Star Citizen, you have to maintain your ship, and that's going to cost money. So whatever you do with the Polaris, you have to make sure that every time you fire one of those torpedoes, somehow, some way, you're getting paid for that, because otherwise you might find yourself running into the red awfully quick with capital-sized torpedoes. Those torpedoes are much more than just the primary weapon system of that ship. They imply certain things about the game, because if there isn't content suitable for this ship, if there isn't content suitable for making money with the ship. Now, we're not talking about making runs from Deacons to Olisar, delivering medical supplies to pay for your torpedoes. We're talking about real content for the ship, things that are going to get the players into the ship and ready and willing to play it and fly it around in the universe. Like things like, say, going into Vanduul space and perhaps collecting bounties for destroying Vanduul cargo ships that might be running convoys supplying their fleet, things like that could basically return a decent level of income for the ship. The ship just isn't going to strictly be a static combat ship. Oh, it's there when you need it. It has to have a job in the universe, and it has to have a way to make money. It has to be a functional component of that universe. It's not just a flashy, cool thing that makes things go bang. It has to play a role within the universe itself. So there will probably have to be some kind of content built around a capital ship, something that it can do, a job in the universe that it can fulfill. Certainly, at the very least, there needs to be something kind of geared around capital ships to kind of keep them busy. You know, even not just so much earnings, but also to keep them busy, to keep them interested, and to keep them, you know, using their capitals in a productive way, as many people would see it. I mean, you don't exactly want these things roaming around just looking for something to do all the time. And you might say, oh, what do you mean? I mean, that's perfectly fine. That's the way the universe should be. That's the way it should be built out. Players should just take their capitals and just go out and see what's what and just do whatever the heck they want. I mean, you're kind of implying that if players don't have something to do with a ship like this, that it could have a detrimental effect on the community. Where's your proof that in any game, players with, you know, really powerful spaceships would ever, you know, kind of turn on other players and maybe create a situation that's not exactly what people want to see, where they would go out and just randomly attack other players with these super powerful spaceships? You know, what makes you think that something like that could ever happen? Where have you ever seen that before? Every single day. Now, of course, that's just something to be aware of. It's not like the Polaris is coming out tomorrow. I mean, obviously, if the Polaris showed up in-game tomorrow, the effects could be, you know, some people would be very, very excited, and other people would be like, oh, no. But we are talking about something that is well beyond a year away. So there's plenty of time between now and then to build out certain systems within the game to accommodate a ship like this. I mean, even if we haven't by that point gone beyond the Crusader system, it's easy to say, hey, you know, take a few Vanduul ships, set up a few NPCs that spawn out in this corner of the Crusader system. Here's a daily quest for the Polaris owners, or a repeatable quest for the Polaris owners. Take your ship out here, shoot down 3 or 4 Vanduul capitals, get X amount of credits, which more than covers your torpedo expense and fuel and whatever, you know, other expenses we run into operating the ship, and then come back, collect your money. That's something that could easily create, I want to say, a distraction, because if you have a ship like that running around bored with nothing to do, you know, idle hands, so on and so forth. But that really is why a lot of people are really excited to see the ship. A lot of people are really interested to see the ship in game, and you know, this kind of news is going to be like, oh my god, great. They can't wait to see it, because the Polaris really is kind of set up in a space where it can really be a huge trendsetter within the game. It could help define the game and shape the game in a way that people may not realize. It could change the way we look at capital ships altogether. It could totally flip things on their heads. I mean, people might understand or look at a Polaris and say, you know what, a Polaris as an individual ship, I don't know that it could beat an Idris. I don't know that it could ever beat a Javelin. But because of the lower cost of the Polaris, there could be more Polarises out there than there are Javelins and Idrises, and you may end up with wolf packs of Polarises flying around attacking targets. And I'm not just talking about NPCs. Orgs can become, you know, not best of friends, shall we say, and end up fighting a war between each other, and in that case Polarises may become a dominant tool within that arena. And so it's going to be very interesting to see where the Polaris lands once it's released into the game. So this is why this is kind of big news and very interesting, because this is going to get a lot of the theory crafters kind of rolling and saying, you know, where exactly is this ship going to fit in the hierarchy of capital ships and all ships in general within the Star Citizen universe, and what could be some of the dangers and what could be some of the benefits of having this ship out in the game. It's going to be a very interesting time over the next year and however long it takes, so long as the ship isn't shelved at some point to allow for something else to be finished. It could be a very, very interesting year to kind of debate and ask these questions as we're watching the ship being developed. I'm very excited to see where CIG is going to go with the Polaris, and I can't wait for them to start the process and begin building it out. And now that things are a little bit more open and a lot more is being shared with us during that creation process, I think it's going to make for some very interesting videos and some very interesting content releases from CIG, hopefully in the not too distant future. Anyways, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.